Hey, so welcome back, and this is another daily LeetCode problem. So today it's called Evaluate Division, and it's a medium level graph problem using depth first search. And so I'll just go ahead and hide this for now, but basically you're given a lot of different input variables, and it can be really confusing just looking at this initially, but I find it fairly intuitive once you understand it. And so basically you're given a list of equations with their associated output values. And with these equations, you have different variables like a and b for the first one. And so the equation for the first one is basically just a, which is the first variable, divided by, and it's just a division for the equation, by the latter variable, so b. And then with the corresponding index, so this is index 0 in equation, so we look at index 0 for the values. And so it's just going to equal 2.0 because it's like a float number. Okay, and you can do the same thing here. So b divided by c is then equal to 3. And so with these inputs, what we want to figure out is what will the results be if we're given these queries. We want to figure out basically the corresponding values here for these queries. Now some of these you won't be able to figure out, and kind of using high school math to be able to derive the values here. You just say, okay, if I can't figure it out, then let's just return -1 in that case. Okay, and so to figure this out, just kind of using basic high school math, say that we want to know what x divided by y is. Oh, my monitor or something's kind of lagging here, so I keep messing up. But say if you want to know what x divided by y is, but all that you know is, say, x divided by z, and say you also know z divided by y. We can actually figure out x divided by y by basically just doing x divided by z multiplied by z over y, because these two cancel out, and that would just give you x divided by y. Okay, so by rearranging these problems, you can actually figure them out. So let's go ahead and kind of use that knowledge to go ahead and implement the algorithm. And so typically, and this is kind of a pattern for most graph problems, is the first thing that you want to do is reformat your input variables so you can have a better working data structure. And so in that case, what we're going to do is we want to iterate through all of the variables in our equations. Say we have x and y to kind of keep it the same theme here with x and y. And then we also want to figure out, okay, what is their associated values? Because that was like the first thing that we wanted to do is map x divided by y is equal to those values. And so let's also get the corresponding value by just zipping these two arrays together. Okay, and so what we're going to do is we're going to have like a lookup, and it's going to be equal to like a default dictionary, where at every single key it's going to have a dictionary as value. And so what this is going to look like more practically is basically, say we know like a divided by b is equal to 2, and then b divided by c is equal to 3, kind of like the last example. What this will look like in this new mapping is we're first going to have a hash map, and then within this hash map we're going to have a key for a, which is also a hash map, which then says, okay, b is then equal to 2. So this just means for a, these are the associated values that we know a divided by that value is, and this is like the output. And then same thing for b here. I think this is a better example. So for b, we know the mapping to a, because b divided by a is 1 over 2 here, so 0.5. And we also know b divided by c, which is 3. So then we'll have the mapping to c, which is 3. And then finally, same thing here, but for c. And so we know c divided by b is 1 over 3, which is like 0.3333, so forth. Okay, so maybe pause the video and just make sure you understand the data structure that we're working with, but it really helps simplify things. We kind of did all this in our heads when we were drawing like the high school math solution to it. And so with that, we just say, okay, this lookup for x is just going to be equal to, for x at y, since it's a nested dictionary, is going to equal to this particular value. But then y divided by x is going to be equal to like 1 over the value. Great, and so from there, what we're gonna wanna output from our program is like an array of these resulting values for these corresponding queries. So let's just make a result array here. And we're gonna return it at the end. But we're gonna want to iterate through all of these queries. So for every x and y in our queries, let's iterate through them and find a resulting solution. And so we're just basically going to append the result to this query by some function that we're going to create above. And we're going to give it the x and y variables, as well as something just to keep track of, and it's common to use it in depth first search, what we've already visited before. And so it's like a visit set. And so once again, x and y, and initially that set is empty because we haven't visited any possible solution yet. Great, and so let's go ahead and implement this. So in depth first search, the first thing that you're going to want to do is kind of check your base cases, and what basically that could be is, okay, what if we're trying to figure out what x divided by x is, but we haven't even seen any equation yet with their corresponding values using x. So there's no way we can compute that, and so we just want to ignore it. So say if x is not in our lookup, and y is not in our lookup, we're just going to return -1 in that case. Otherwise, what if like we already know x divided by x? And so in that case, let's just go ahead and return the solution. So if x is in, or say if y is in our lookup at x, then we already know what the solution is. And so let's just go ahead and return that solution. Otherwise, we know in that case that we're going to have to compute the result. And so let's just go ahead and do that. So what we're going to do is we want to iterate through all the possible solutions that we know, kind of using that high school math I showed you before. And so we just say for I in our lookup at, let's see here, at x, since we don't know x divided by y, let's see what we know x divided by something is. We want to like basically figure this out, but if we don't and we're not able to figure it out, let's just return -1 at the end here. Okay, and so the first thing that we're going to want to do is check, okay, have we actually visited this before? Because just to prevent those infinite cycles. So we just say, okay, if I is in visit, let's just continue on and ignore this particular like formula. Otherwise, let's go ahead and add it because we're now visiting it. So visit dot add this particular number. And we're going to want to perform another depth first search from here. And this is kind of templated code that I'm using here. And so we just do a depth first search on I divided by y. And that was the high school math I showed you where, okay, if we don't know x divided by y, we might know x divided by something. And if we know x divided by, say, c, then we just need to know also c divided by y to figure out x divided by y. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And so we just go on from here and we just include our visit set. And so this is going to return something, since we're returning like -1 if we don't find something. And let's just return this in some temporary variable called temp. And so then we say, okay, if our temp is equal to -1, then let's just ignore this, and naturally we haven't found anything of use, so we just ignore it and we continue on to the next possible variable. Otherwise, then we do know enough so we can actually compute our result, and so we just say, okay, then let's return the lookup at x at I multiplied by that result that we just computed. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that. That looks good, and submit it, and success. So yeah, I hope that helped. It's a challenging problem first reading it out and coming up with it, but I think the key to solving this problem is, I think knowing to use depth first search is fairly intuitive, but I think understanding how to figure out first like the high school math and is one part, and then the second part is then just seeing, okay, building this kind of data structure, making sure you know that not only to compute x divided by y equals this, but also y divided by x is 1 over that value, I think is the second part of this. But yeah, this is a great solution, and I hope it helped. Thanks for watching.